subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.
Hello. Good day, how do you do? Happy to see you, happy to meet you. Good day, time for literature. Happy to see you, my friends. Hello there, and it's a good day, and I'm happy to see you all through my cameras. How have you been, my learners? I've been super energetic. I hope you are too. Great. Welcome to Senior High School R, here on Joy Learning. It is time with Jamal Labi for Literature in English, SHS 1. It is a continuation lesson, and so if you missed the last lesson, don't worry, there's going to be a quick recap so you catch up and be on the same page with us. So we are looking at Bats by David H. Lawrence. Okay? So I mentioned the review. Now let's look at what we did in the previous lesson. And so in the previous lesson, we took time to have a glimpse about the background of the poet. We learned that the poet has several books to his credit, and so we say he's a prolific writer. He's written a lot of poetry, a lot of novels, a lot of short stories, plays, essays, and a lot of criticisms. We also learned that his works are heavily autobiographical, and the experiences of his early life. And so if you look at the poem Bats that we are going to study today, if you look at his other poem like Snake, you get to understand that most of the things he writes based on his experience, based on his encounters that he's pushed to write. We also got to know when he was born. And we learned that he was born in 1985 in Eastwood and died on the 2nd of March, 1930. Let's bounce on. So we got to know that he attended Beauville Boarding School, where he won a scholarship to Nottingham High School, and then he worked small as a clerk, and then eventually he became a teacher. And so, you know, teachers, undoubtedly, we do a lot of beautiful things, and Lawrence was also a teacher. I think I didn't take you through his full name, and so normally you will see D.H. Lawrence. The D.H. is David Herbert Lawrence, okay? Good job. Let's run over from his background. I think I've given you something more about him, okay? And so if anybody asks us, you're reading Bats, the animal Bats, by Lawrence, who at all is he? Then you can say that Lawrence is David Herbert Lawrence. He was born in 1985. Is he alive or dead? He is dead. Good job. Now, some key elements that you will notice in Lawrence's books or his write-ups is the fact that Lawrence's works are written in lyrical form. So there's some kind of rhyme rhythm anytime you read his poems. They are also sensuous, and so they appeal to the senses, they appeal to the emotions. We also see that they are in the rhapsodic prose style, and so where you are going to see a fully structured poem of, let's say, a sonnet, 14 lines, an octave, 8 lines, a sextet, 6 lines. When it comes to David Herbert, his style is a bit of rhapsodic prose style. When we say it's rhapsodic prose style, it means that it's quite lengthy. And so, if you are reading his poem or you are studying his poem, it's like you're reading a book. A short story actually, but it communicates, it sends the message, and so you are able to really get a grasp of what he's talking about. Now, he also had an extraordinary ability to convey a sense of specific time. And so if you missed our previous lesson, this is something more about Lawrence, okay? Lawrence's style is quite sensuous. So when you read the poem, you see that some of the lines are relatable and they also appeal to the senses. Now, his writings often reflected his complex personality, of course. And so, if you didn't look at the poem but, and you are now looking at the poem but, you will understand all the things that I've mentioned about Lawrence. So fast forward, this is a picture of Lawrence, okay? So if you've never seen him before, that is David Herbert Lawrence. We also took time to look at some of the unfamiliar words, okay? So we started in our previous lesson, let's spell. And today too, we are going to spell some words and know the meaning of the words. And so we looked at gloom, glowing, axe, obscure. We also looked at spools, soap, twitch, shudder. So as you have seen it displayed on the screen, I'm sure that you have taken your notebook, you've grabbed your pen, and you are noting down some new words and their meaning. And so if we say spools, then we are talking about quail, something that has spools, is quailed up or it moves, okay? If you look at swoop, and so when I say that the bird swooped over the fence, it means the bird jumped over the fence or the bird flew down over the fence. And so that is swoop. Twitch is also there. Shudder is also there. And then we looked at the summary of the poem. And so in our previous lesson, we learned that the poem but, okay, centers on the poet's indifference to the creature but. When we say that something is indifferent, then we are talking about the fact that the poet had a certain perception, a certain form of dislike for the animal bat. Now, he tells how he was sitting on a terrace somewhere in Florence, Italy, beyond Pisa. And so a quick summary of the poem points to the fact that he was seated somewhere. He saw the animal bat fly in the sky, and while he looked at it, he felt quite uncomfortable. He felt, why is this bat just hovering over my head? I don't like it. That is how he felt. And because he didn't really like the bat, he chose to write the poem that we are studying today. Now, he again marvels at the exact nature of flying objects in general. And he says that like a glove, a black glove, one thrown up at the light. And so today, in Let's Spell a Word, you are going to know the meaning of the word glove, okay? Good. Now, also according to the poets Lawrence, David, Herbert, okay, he feels that bards are wildly vindictive. And if we say something is vindictive actually has been used in the poem. And so if you describe an animal as being wildly vindictive. What does it mean? Don't worry, you will discover it very soon. And he also says that the bat gives a sense of fright. A sense of fright. Now, they don't just swoop, according to him, but fly madly, causing an easy creeping in one's scalp. Now, according to David Herbert Lawrence, if you are seated somewhere and the animal bat hovers over your head, it's quite uncomfortable. Now, in the local setting, let me bring it contextually to a situation in Ghana, okay? Now, growing up as a little girl, when I used to get to 37 Military Hospital, usually you will find the bats hovering all around. People had their own perception about them. Now, the question to be answered is, where are they? We had a lot of bats, but I don't see them anymore. Could we also say that because of the dislike that people had for the bats have all run away? It's a question to be answered. We are talking about Herbert's dislike for the animal bats, and that led to the poem that we are studying today. And so we can also say that he even seems to consider whether the creatures, okay, he considers them as little lambs that fly in the air, and their wings as bits of the umbrella. And so you see how the umbrella actually looks like, okay? I think in our previous lesson, I showed you a picture of a bat. I should have done the same today. Don't worry, go to the internet, and then you'll find a pictorial representation of how a bat look like. And so those days, there were a lot of bats at the 37 Military Hospital where the trees were. Now, Herbert says that when they sleep, that is the bats, they look like rows of disgusting old rags. How can you describe an animal like that? And so in summary, we say that he compares them, how people love animals, to how he dislikes the animals or how others dislike it. And so you get to understand and see in some lines of the poem that while in China, they are excited, they are happy. Anytime they see a bat, on his part, seeing a bat, feeling the presence of the bat even around, disorganizes him, okay? He feels that the bat even disorganizes his thoughts and disorganizes everything around him. Now, what are our objectives for today? Our objectives for today is to identify the structure of the poem. We did a lot in the previous lesson based on what you have seen. Today, we want to look at the structure. How many lines are in the poem? What are the literary devices that are present in the poem? What sense does it connote? What message has been sold out? We are going to discover all of that today. Now, get up from your seat, pick your phone, send a message to your friends, call them. If you are in the car, you can equally call. Let them grab their notebooks and pen and tell them it is time to enjoy literature here on Joy Learning, okay? Good job. Relax and let's go on to Let's Spell a Word. And so in Let's Spell a Word today, our first word is serrated. Is word serrated. So, serrated. Now, what does it mean when we say serrated? Okay, serrated means jagged. And so you hear somebody say that, oh, he has jagged the thing. Jag, I want to describe it. So the thing standing, pointed, okay? So another meaning for serrated is pointed. Another meaning for serrated is rough. Another meaning for serrated is sharp. And we are going to identify how the word serrated was used in the poem. We have realized serrated means jagged, pointed, rough, sharp. And then we have wavering, okay? What is the word again? Whisper it out. Good job. Wavering. And wavering means that undecisive, okay? It also means that uncertain. It also means uncommitted. And it also means irresolute. So, I'm quite wavering about the situation. What does it mean? You are uncertain, you are uncommitted, you are undecisive, and you are irresolute. And it's been used in the poem. We also have our next word that we are spelling is disgusting. And you know, usually, the way the word disgusting is pronounced actually, okay? The way that disgusting is pronounced is actually how it looks. So you see people use the word disgusting and it's evident. Nobody says disgusting. Nobody ever says disgusting smiling. Disgusting. You get it? So disgusting means filthy. It can also mean nauseating. So sometimes you hear, oh, this is disgusting. So you are nauseated and you feel like vomiting because the thing is disgusting. Horrible. So if something is also disgusting, it means the thing is horrible. And then revolting. So another word which also requires a meaning is revolting. And revolting means disgusting. It also means filthy, nauseating, and horrible. Is it working? Are you enjoying the lesson? You can take some water and start sipping, okay? And relax and let's enjoy. And then grinning. Beaming, smiling, laughing, smiling. That is also in the poem. Grinning. And then we have vindictive. Vindictive. And if somebody or something is being vindictive, then the person is quite mean. The person is bitter. The person is malicious. The person is spiteful. Spiteful, malicious, bitter, mean, okay? And then creeping, creeping. So when you're creeping, you see we have the creeping plants. Have you seen or heard about the creeping plants? So the creeping plants, usually you see it grow and even climb around the house. If it's a tree, you see that the plants will just, you know, wrap around it. So we call that creeping. And we say the creeping can also mean tiptoeing. So you are tiptoeing or you are sneaking. You see how it is when you're sneaking? And then sidling as well as stealing. Of course, when you are stealing, you don't go straight. You look around, you creep a little, and then you take it. That is the end of our Let's Spell a Word today. And these words are all evidence in our poem, okay? So, we looked at serrated, wavering, disgusting, grinning, vindictive, and creeping. Good job. Now let's move to the poem and then we start looking at the structure. So, Bats by Lawrence David. At evening, sitting on the stars, when the sun from the west, beyond Pisa, beyond the mountains of Carrara, departs, and the world is taken by surprise. When the tired flower of Florence is in gloom beneath the glowing brown hill surrounding. When under the eggs of the Ponte Vecchio, a green light enters against stream, flash from the west against the current of obscure Arno. Look up, and you'll see things flying between the day and the night. Swallows with pools of dark thread sewing the shadows together. A circle swoop, and a quick parabola under the bridge X, where life pushes through. A sudden turning upon itself of a thing in the air. A dip to the water. And you think the swallows are flying so late. Swallows? Dark air life looping, yet missing the pure loop. A switch, a twitter, an elastic shudder in flight, and serrated wings against the sky. So, this is our word. What color do we use? Let's use green. Serrated. So don't forget that when we were looking at let's spell a word, we came across serrated. Like a glove, a black glove thrown up at the light and falling back. Never swallows, bats. The swallows are gone. At a wavering instant, and swallows gave way to bats. So wavering, okay? Don't forget we also looked at the word wavering. Let's use red here. Changing guard. Bats. An uneasy creeping in one's scalp. So we also looked at the word creeping. And an easy creeping in one's scalp. Don't forget that we said when something is creeping, is what? Tiptoeing, it's stealing. Good. It's sidling. All right. As the bat swooped overhead, we also saw the meaning of swoop in our previous lesson, and we saw that swoop is what? Fly down. Flying madly. Perpetually, black pipe on an infinite smell pipe. Little lamb that fly in air and have voices indefinite. Wildly vindictive. So we came across the word vindictive as well. Wings like bits of umbrella. Bats. Creatures that hang themselves up like an old rag to sleep and disgustingly upside down. How can you describe an animal as disgustingly upside down? Hanging upside down like rows of disgusting old rags and grinning in their sleep. It's amazing, right? How can a bat smile in the sleep? In China, the bat is symbol for happiness. Not for me. Not me, oh. Lawrence. All right. So we said grinning means what? Quickly, before we look at the structure, we said grinning means what? Smile. So because it's in the continuous, our meaning should also be in the continuous, right? Okay, good job. So smiling, smiking. We said disgusting is what? Filthy, revolting. Okay. Yeah. And then we also saw what? Creeping. And we said creeping is what? Stealing. Based on the context. So bats and an easy creeping in one's scalp. Now let's quickly come here. In this case, which of the words are we going to use to replace creeping in the poem? I think we can go for sneaking, right? The birds don't tiptoe. Can they tiptoe in the air? Okay. But they can sneak. They can sideline. Okay, sideline. And then we know vindictive to be malicious. We know beaming. Okay, for the grinning. All right. So now that we know the meaning of these words, okay, which one did we say we were taking? Sideline. All right. Vindictive. We said vindictive is what? Spiteful. Okay. Good job. And then wavering. Wavering, we said wavering means what? Quickly look at it. Wavering means what? Indecisive, uncertain, uncommitted. Okay. 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 Good job. And so, out of the words that we started with, let's spell a word, okay? Now we have seen how the words have been used in the poem. We came across serrated, and we said serrated means what? Pointed. We also said it meant what? Sharp. It also meant what? Rough. Now in this case, which of the meanings actually fits in the poem? And serrated wings against the sky. So we can say, and sharp wings against the sky. Or, and pointed wings against the sky. And so all the meanings that we've identified actually fits in the poem, right? Good job. All right. Now, from all we've done, we've looked at the poem. We've looked at the meaning of the poem. What I want you to do now is to take your time together with me and let's identify the structure of the poem. How many lines do we have? Don't forget, when we're looking at poetry in general, we looked at the structure. We said we'll look at the number of lines, whether the lines are run-on or end-stop. We will identify whether the lines are monostitch. You remember what a monostitch line is? Okay. Whether the lines are couplets. You remember that one too? Whether the words are tacits. Do you remember that one too? Good. So we mentioned all these when we're looking at poetry in general. Now let's quickly go to the poem and look at the structure. So we are going to count together to know the number of lines that we can identify in the poem. Okay, so let's go. 1, 2, let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. How many lines do we have in the poem Birds? So let's write here. So Birds is a poem of 45 lines. Good job. Now the next thing we are going to look at is the number of stanzas. So Bart is a poem of how many lines? 45 lines. We counted together. Now let's look at the stanzas, okay? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And so Bart is a poem. Bart is a poem of 18 stanzas. Or we can say it's an 18 stanza poem. Now we are going to go back to the poem and check whether the stanzas are even or uneven. So let's go back. Okay, so let's start. Let's look at the first stanza. How many lines do we have in the first stanza? Write it down. Good. The second stanza. Good. The third stanza. Good. The fourth stanza. Good. The fifth stanza. Well done. Sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. I'm seeing one stanza line. Are you also seeing it? I'll teach you what the one stanza line poem means. Okay, okay, okay. Good. Now the question to be answered is, a poem of 18 stanzas. Why do we have a whole stanza being just a word or one line? That is to tell you that a poem can have just one line stanza. And a one line stanza poem is called a monostage. It's called what? A monostage. Monostage, as in you are sewing. Okay, so one stanza poem, one stanza line, one stanza line. Okay, all right. And when the lines are two, we call it couplet. We call it what? Couplet. Again, couplet. Good job. Okay, now what are the words that are actually entailed in these stanzas? Now let's go to the analysis that I've done as we look at the structure. Now before we look at the analysis, okay, I came out with a theme. We are going to skip the theme. After we've looked at the analysis, I'm expecting that you, my learners, will be able to identify the theme on your own. And so, yay, we are right, you and I. So when we counted the number of lines, we identified that Bard is a 45-line poem with no exact stanzic structure. Stanzic structure. That is to tell you that some of the lines are tacets. So a tacet line is just 3 lines. Some of the lines are monostitch, and monostitch is just 1 line. Some of the lines are couplets, and that is 2 lines. I'm sure there are quatrains. So quatrains, 4 lines. Did you see any sextets, any 6 lines? I'm not sure, but we can go back to it, okay? I hope now you have the poem, because my first years, it is mandatory that you start looking at all the poems. Now the poem is written in which way? It's a free verse. It doesn't follow any rigid rule. Okay? So whether it's not a Shakespearean sonnet, romantic sonnet, or whatever, it is just a free verse. No rule. Nothing binds it. Now, each stanza is not made of the same number of lines. I'm sure you identified that as well, because we did it together. Now, some are one word, but, and that is a stanza, okay? Or line that makes up a stanza. And so you can find a stanza with just a word. Now, you don't have to be surprised. When you are analyzing the poem, when you are looking at the structure of a poem, okay? Like the structure of a human being, like me. My eyes are different from my nose, okay? My mouth is different from my neck. The same way, in some poems, the structure is not the same. You don't find the lines following a certain pattern. That if it's 3, it's just 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. If it's 5, it's just 5, 5, 5, 5. If it's an octave, it's 8, 8, 8, 8. Okay? Good job. And so this poem, we can say that it is a, say that again, free verse. Good. Now, do you remember that we also identified the poem has how many stanzas? 18 stanzas. Clap for yourself. We did it together, you and I. In all, the poem is written in 18 stanzas, with each stanza containing a variety of lines. I think I've explained that, and that is good, right? Good. Now, let's take our time and look at the first stanza of the poem. Okay. Quickly, let's go back. Good. There we go. So we have the first stanza. This is the first stanza of Lawrence's poem. At evening, sitting on those chariot, when the sun from the west beyond Pesa, beyond the mountains of Carrara, departs, and the world is taken by surprise. That is a stanza. Then you come and see a couplet. So I've mentioned the couplet. So the first is a tacit, 3 lines. The second is a couplet, okay? You can read further about all the things I'm mentioning. Then we meet another tacit, 3 lines, okay? Then another tacit. Then we meet a quatrain, 4 lines. Then we meet another couplet. Then we meet 1 line. And I said 1 line is what? Monostage. So the monostage, even if it's just a word on a line, is still a monostage, okay? Then we meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's part of your assignments. Go and find out. I said this when I was teaching at the beginning. I said a poem of 6 lines is called a sextext, okay? Sextext. That's a poem of 6 lines. It's called a sextext. Now, never swallows bats. The swallows are gone. And so we see another tacit here. We see another tacit over there. Okay, my learners. Auntie has gone beyond what we are looking at. Good. Yeah, we are back on track. All right. So we saw that the first stanza is made up of 3 lines. The second stanza contains just 2 lines. I explained to you what those lines meant. The third stanza has 3 lines. Line 34 is a 1-line stanza and also known as a monostage. I mentioned that earlier. And so on and so forth. And so as we go on, and as you studied already, I'm sure you've realized the lines are uneven. The lines are what? Uneven. Good job. Now is your turn, is my turn. We are still looking at the structure of the poem, okay, in our analysis. Let's look at the literary devices present in there, okay? So one of the devices that we can talk about is what we term as metonymy. It's called what? Metonymy. Now, the persona of this poem, so I've taught you what persona is too before. I said persona is the voice you hear as you read the poem. The voice you hear as you read the poem. That is persona. The persona of this poem uses several literary devices to convey his shifting perceptions of the natural world. And so you see, he will talk about something here, then he'll go and talk about something there, all pointing at the natural world. Now, unlike some people, the persona finds the creatures vindictive and loathsome. So the speaker employs metonymy by writing that the world is taken by surprise. How can the world be taken by surprise? That is metonymy. While his focus is on the natural world in this poem, the world here comes to represent the reaction of all of the people in the world. Okay? And so when you are looking at, so we have a device called synecdoche. Some people will say synecdoche. Okay? So whether it's synecdoche or synecdoche, what does it mean? Using a part to represent a whole. That is synecdoche. That's what I would have taught me. But time has evolved. And so if your teachers are pronouncing it as synecdoche, then let's see and learn from them as well. And so in using a part to represent a whole, then we can term that as synecdoche. Now, metonymy also plays the same role as synecdoche. It also uses a part to represent a whole. So here we see the world is taken by surprise. Now, the world here comes to represent the reaction of the people. Okay. So you hear people say the world is amazed at you. How is the world amazed at you? Okay. All right. Other devices that we can see in the poem is metaphor and alliteration. Now you'll be wondering why I have metaphor and I have alliteration all on the same line. Quickly for us to just go through. Metaphor plays a role. Alliteration also plays a role. Don't forget, we learned that metaphor is what? Direct comparison. Okay? Direct comparison between two dissimilar things without the use of as or like. Without the use of as or like. And so I can say she is a pen. She is a pen. That is metaphorical, okay? I'm comparing she to a pen. What has the pen done? Maybe the pen is slender, is slim. Maybe the pen is floated. And so she's represented the pen. I'm comparing. She is, Mama is a sunrise. Perfect. Mama is a sunrise. Comparing Mama to the sunrise, two opposite things. Comparing them without the use of as or like. And then we learned that alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sounds. Don't forget, repetition of the same consonant sounds in close succession. And so here, there are some examples of metaphor. There are also examples of alliteration, or in the poem, but. Okay? Good job. And so let's see. Now in line 4, when the tide flowers of Florence in the gloom beneath. So here we are not only finding metaphor, we are also finding personification, okay? So we can also find personification here. Okay? When the, how can it flowers be tied? That is given human attributes to non-human entity. And so we get personification there. Okay? Flower of Florence. So we get another device there. And that's what? So here the repetition of the four. Flower, Florence. I made you understood that when we have repetition of the same consonant. Repeat that after me. Consonant. I know you say consonant. Don't say consonant again. Consonant. So the repetition of the same consonant sounds. So we have the consonant sound f in flowers and f in Florence. And that gives us what? Alliteration. Good job. All right. Now he also compares Florence to a tide flower. And I just compared Mama to the sunrise. And I said, when you say Mama is a sunrise, we term that as what? Metaphor. Okay? Metaphor, direct comparison. Mama and sunrise are two different things. But the moment you say, Mama is like a sunrise, then what device is that? Simile. Good job. And so we are looking at the use of metaphor in this line. And here we have Florence. When the tide flower of Florence, okay? Tide flower of Florence. Now the tide flower gives us a different device. That's what I mentioned earlier. I said it's what? Personification. But where you have tide flower of Florence, then we are illustrating both the beauty of the city and the weariness, okay? Worry, you know, worry, tiredness, okay? In the close of day. That's beautiful, right? And so in the poem, we have identified one device already. We saw metonymy. We've looked at what metonymy is. And then we are seeing metaphor. We have seen alliteration. And what else are we seeing? Symbolism. Say that. Symbolism. Now here, the poet delays many symbols in the poem. Okay? So, but Lawrence makes use of nature and creatures from nature as a symbol. Right? So he describes, he gives you a mental representation of all the things happening. He uses things to give a symbol. A symbol. He talks about the wings of the bat and compares it to something else, as to the umbrella. Good job. And so you see that and you're like, okay, what symbol is that? Can I find that out? What is the poet trying to connote? And so we see symbolism. Hello there. Breathe in, out. In, out. Well done. Now let's continue. What devices have we identified in the poem? Whisper loud. I want somebody to hear you in the house or in the car. Good job. Now, let's move away and come to diction, okay? Now, what is the diction of the poem? So when we talk about diction, we are talking about the choice of words, the use of language, okay? Diction, the use of language. Now, the poet's use of language, okay? The poet's use of language is quite simple. I think most of the words are words that we've come into contact with. They are words that we have heard of, okay? And so, the poet's use of language is very simple and he adopts the use of conversational. Let's see something quickly here. Are you here with me? Good, 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 good. At evening, sitting on the terrace, when the sun from the west, beyond Pisa, beyond the mountains of Carrara, departs, and the world is taken by surprise, when the tide flower of Florence is in gloom beneath the glowing brown hills surrounding, when under the eggs of the Pontificio, a green light enters against stream, flash from the west, against the current of obscure Anu. Look up. So there's a form of conversation, okay? The persona is talking to you too. Look up and you see things flying. Between the day and the nights, swallows with spools of dark thread sewing the shadows together. A circle swoop. And so you see the conversation, okay? That's the conversation that we see them. And so the poet makes use of conversation in the poem. That's a diction. Now let's quickly glance through our themes. Okay, I skipped that. I said we will look at it before I go. We are not looking at that again. And so this assignment is for you. Okay, I expect you to go and read further as I talk about the theme, so that anytime you meet a question on the poem Bats, you'll be able to answer it. Is it good? Good job. And so we can see the theme of absurd prejudice. What does it mean, Auntie Jima? So prejudice, have you heard of Pride of Prejudice? I still don't understand. Okay. So prejudice can be a form of dislike, okay? So we say that unreasonable dislike, absurd, crazy dislike. You have no reason, you just don't like things. So unreasonable dislike for mammals, for animals. And that's what is pictured in the poem. And not just in the poem, you can also see it in his other poems. So in other poems of Lawrence, so when you talk about the poem Snake by Lawrence, over there, he says that he throws a log at a snake, not because he wants to, but because people generally dislike snakes. And you know what a log is, right? A wood or a stick. So we see unreasonable dislike. Some people just don't like cats. Some people don't like dogs. Some people I know, like myself. I don't like dogs, I'm afraid of dogs, okay? And so some people will also not like cats. Others will just not like fowl, but they will eat the fowl. That's absurd, right? Okay, so we see absurd, crazy, unreasonable, dislike for animals. We also see the theme of admiration for nature. And I think that's my favorite. If you look at how the poem opens, okay, how the persona, the voice in the poem just sits somewhere and says, at evening, sitting on the terrace, when the sun from the west, beyond Persia, beyond the mountains, when the tide flower of Florence is in gloom, beneath the glowing. You know the glowing? That is beneath the glowing. So here, the persona was talking about nature, describing nature. What do you see in the evening? When you relax and you take a seat to sit outside, you will see what? The sun from the west dying out, entering for the moon to come out. And when that happens, the tide flowers, all the tide things go to bed. Have you ever seen a goat at dawn? They sleep as well. Have you ever seen a bird at dawn? They sleep, they all get tired, okay? So we see the poet admiring nature. And the final theme I identified was the theme of the right to individual preference. Where do we see that theme? Now, getting to the latter part of the poem, the last stanza, Okay, you see that the persona says that in China, I think I'll go to China soon. In China, they have admiration. They are happy about the bat. Not for me, not for the persona. And so the right to individual preference. Hello, my learners. From all that we have studied today, we've looked at spell a word. We spelled some word. We came across serrated. We came across vindictive, disgusting. What else did we come across? A lot of words today. We identified those words in the poem. We looked at how it's been used in the poem as well. We took our time to read the poem, but now we came to analyze it by looking at the structure of the poem. We said Bart is a poem of 45 lines. We also saw that Bart has 18 stanzas. So the poem Bart has got 18 stanzas. We also realized the lines are uneven and the poem is a free verse. We also discovered the diction, the style, the use of language in the poem. And we discovered that the words are quite simple. Well done. And then, we looked at some devices as well. We came across metonymy, metaphor, alliteration, personification, symbolism. And finally, we looked at some themes that are evident in the poem. We saw the theme of absurd prejudice. We also saw the theme of love, admiration for nature. And we looked at the theme of the rights of preference. So while somebody will not like something, the other person will like it. The moral lesson in the poem that we have studied today is going to be Jime's lines for you as you live in your house, as you stay at home, as you encounter with other people. And so Jime's lines for today, what does it say? Let's quickly write it together. Okay. Jime's line says that okay, so Jime's lines for today says that acceptance differs but converges at a point. Accept all. What does it mean? By accepting other people, other things might differ from how you look at things and how you accept them. But at the end of the day, we all meet at a point and get to understand that the way you will see the television might be different from the way I will see it. But at the end of the day, accepting the way you see it, and I accepting the way I also see mine, and we meeting at a point to appreciate our uniqueness brings out the best. And so hello there, my learners. As you go to school, when your friends make a point, just accept it. Opinions, that's their opinion, okay? And so, this is your assignment. Symbolism. There are other poems for us to look at, okay? We have to look at the good moral. We have to look at the journey of the Magi. We have to look at Symbolism. Don't worry, we will look at all of them before you write your exams. You are in first year, don't worry. even though you are going to second year. And so your assignment, Christmas assignment, is to look at Benzipolis by G.M. Hopkins, identify the structure of the poem, and then analyze the poem. I'm sure you can do that based on all that we have done. Hello, hello, hello. All so soon, the lesson has come to an end. It's when senior high school are here on Joy Learning. Don't forget, accept others and accept yours. And we meet at a point. Enjoy the rest of the day and stay blessed. It's been time with Jamal Labi here on Joy Learning channel. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.
Hello, you are welcome once again to SHSR on Joy Learning. This is Core Mathematics for Senior High School 2, or we say SHS 2 Core Mathematics. My name is Evans O'Day. On our last meeting, we started with the concept of measuration 1. You know, in our syllabus, we have measuration 1 and 2. And we said measuration 1 deals with plane geometry or plane figures, and measuration 2 also deals with solid figures. And so we started with the part 1 of measuration 1, and today we want to look at part 2. And possibly we could also get part 3 because it's a very complicated topic, a very broad topic, you know. So you have more concept to pick in here. And so I'm sure you are ready with your notebooks, your calculators, pen and papers. Let's just go straight to the concept of measuration 1, part 2. By the end of this section, you are supposed to calculate the perimeter of plane figures, find the area of polygons, and find area and perimeters of composite shapes, which of course we may not be able to read the composite shapes. We may refer that to part 3. So with starters as usual, let's just take some few mental work. Divide 30 by half and add 10 to it. What is your answer? Divide 30 by half and add 10 to it. Don't rush in getting the answer. I know you can do it so easily, but don't rush. Just divide 30 by half and add 10 to it. What is your answer? Few seconds. I'm sure you're going to tell me the answer is 25, as obvious as you may think, but I just want to surprise you as the answer being 70, not 25. Why? Because I'm saying 30 divided by half. I didn't say 30 divided by 2. 30 divided by half simply means 30 like this, okay? And when you have to simplify this, to be 30 times 2 divided by 1, which will be 30 times 2, and that is 60 plus 10, making 70. Your next question, in 5 seconds, what will you say to this? If you had one match, okay, and entered a room in which there are kerosene lamp, oil burner, and wooden stove, which one would you light first? Will it be the kerosene lamp, the burner, or the wooden stove? Which one would you light first? There are only one match, remember? One match. Okay. 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I'm presuming you want to just think of, say, okay, kerosene lamp, somebody will say oil burner or wooden burning stove. But then to surprise you, the answer is going to be the match. Whichever be the case, you need to light the match first before you can light any of them. So the first thing to light is the match, but not the kerosene lamp, oil burner, or wooden stove. All right, so we are looking at perimeters and areas of plane figures. Our first meeting, we were looking at measuration 1, and we talked about circles. We're able to discuss area of a circle, perimeter of a circle, a circumference. We discussed how to find the area of a sector, perimeter of a sector, area of a segment. I mean, those are the things we're looking at. But today we want to look at other plane figures apart from circle, other plane figures. All right, so let's start. What is perimeter of a plane figure? Talk of perimeter of a plane figure. I'm sure this is not the first time you are hearing this, because right from primary 1, 2, 3, you discuss about areas, you discuss about size of a figure, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure from the upper primary 4, 5, 6, they introduce you to perimeter. So you all know perimeter of a plane figure. Of course, so we can here say it is the total distance around the plane figure. Total distance around the plane figure. I mean, as simple as that. What about the area of a plane figure? Of course, GHS we did, primary school we did that. So by definition, we say area is the measurement of the amount of space occupied by a closed flat surface. It is measured in square units, right? So all areas are measured in square units. And the most widely ones that we use is the millimeter square, centimeter square, meter squared. That is for small areas that we calculate normally in school. But then if you come to the bigger area, like maybe talking about the area of a land, area of a town, area of a whole country, we normally look at it in terms of either kilometers or acres or hectares. And so mostly you see people buying land and then they buy it in terms of hectares or acres. Now, how do we convert this? If you have 100 meters squared, it gives us 1 acre. And so if someone says, I'm farming on 1 acre land, that means that person is farming 100 meter square. And I'm sure you know what 100 meter is. You can estimate 100 meters. Normally, during our athletics festivity, we talk about people running 100 meters race. And you look at the distance that they run for 100 meters. So if you pick that distance squared, then it gives you 1 acre of a land. So you can presume how big an acre of a land will be. Then if you get this 100 acres also in a square form, or if you get 100 acres, let me just put it that way, it gives you 1 hectare. And so if someone is having 1 hectare of land, hey, that's a very big land, because the person is having 100 by 100 times 100. That's quite big, which is the same as saying 10,000 meters squared. And that's a very big one, right? Why the need for this topic? Why do we have to do this topic in school? Even at primary school, we are doing it, secondary school, we are doing it, JHS, we are doing it. We still have to do it because it has its own applications in our real life situations. To calculate the number of tiles to be added to a kitchen or kitchen floor, the area of the kitchen floor must be taken into consideration. And so if I want to tile this particular kitchen that we see here, I must know the area of the room so that I'll know how much tiles I have to buy. It helps a lot if you know how to calculate that. If you want to paint your room, you can know the area of the wall and then know how much paint you have to buy, or the windows that you have to paint, the ceilings, and so on and so forth. If you are fixing a glass window or glass door and you want to know how much glass you have to buy for this assignment, you say that the carpenters will come and take the measurement of your window. You look at the length, the breadth, they pick the area. They can now go and buy your windows for you and fix them. So the topic area and perimeter is very, very important in our everyday life. And almost every day we do calculations in terms of measuring something in area or with perimeters. So now let's look at area and perimeter of square and rectangle. What we are going to do is that I'll give you the formulas or deduce the formulas, then we pick example, then we solve. Now, because we are doing this topic in senior high school, the way the formulas will come will not be the same way they'll put the questions, because at the JHS, they give you the same thing. But at the senior high school, the question must be a bit tricky for you to apply more knowledge in doing it. So prepare for that. What is square? Let's understand square simple, in the simple way. We did this in plane geometry 1. If you not watch that lesson, if you go back to, go to YouTube and you type revision show and you type maybe core mathematics, you see a topic plane geometry 1 and 2 over there. There I have detailed all the plane figures, the rhombus, the square, the rectangle. I went deep into that. And there we got to know that a square is a rectangle with all sides equal. It's quite strange to define square as rectangle, and that is true. Square is a rectangle with all sides equal. If you pick a square, these are some of the properties you should expect, which will guide you in doing calculations as far as the area and perimeter is concerned. So we have all sides equal, that is for square. And all interior angles are right angle, that is 90 degrees. We also know that opposite sides are parallel, which is very true and important to you. Diagonals bisect each other at right angle. Also very critical information that you need, because in the course of solving questions, which of course I'm not going to give you, the length of a square is 6. What is the area? I mean, I will not give you that question. I mean, that question will not come in exams. So you need to prepare something bigger. And so you have to understand the concept, the detailed properties of square, so you can answer questions. Square has 4 lines of symmetry. Very important to take note of that. So to find the area, that's the space a square occupies. If you look at it, your TV set is a rectangular shape. The area of that rectangle, the area of the square, how do we calculate it? We look at it in terms of the length and then the breadth or the width. And of course, because it's square, all sides are equal, we can say L times L. And when you do that, you get the area to be L squared. And the perimeter is going to just give you, adding all the lengths, the 4 lengths, and you get 4L. As simple as that. Now, to find a diagonal, okay, very important because most of the questions will come in using the diagonals to solve questions. The diagonal, we are using D to represent it. So we know our diagonal to be D. So the D is equal to square root of 2 times the side. Let's prove that quickly and see. Let me call this L and call this L. Call here L because they are all the same. All right. If I want to find a diagonal, remember this is right angle triangle. And so if I use Pythagoras theorem, I can say D squared is equals to L squared plus L squared. D squared becomes L squared plus L squared will give us 2L squared. Because I want to make D the subject, I'll take square root to both sides. So D becomes square root of 2L squared, which is the same as square root of 2 times square root of L squared. Right. And we know square root of L squared will just give us L. Okay, and so this is going to be square root of 2 times L, and L represents the side. And that is why I said D is equal to square root of 2 times the side. So whatever side that is given, you multiply that side by 2 and root 2, and you get your answer as such. Now for rectangle, almost the same as square, just that rectangle has 2 opposite sides equal. And so that brings the difference between the rectangle and then the square. A rectangle is a parallelogram with all angles being right angles. As simple as that. All angle being right angle means all angles are 90, 90, 90. And I'm saying it's a parallelogram. It is a parallelogram, but what makes it different or unique is that if a parallelogram have all interior angles to be 90, it has a new name called rectangle. And when a rectangle has all the sides equal, it is called square. And that is why we say square is a rectangle. And again, the properties hold the same. Opposite sides are congruent. Interior angles are right. Opposite sides are parallel. Diagonals bisect each other, but not 90 degrees. Take note of that. For that of square, we saw that the diagonals will bisect at 90, but for this one, no. And it's very important to take note of that. Rectangle has 2 lines of symmetry. Unlike square, where we have 4, rectangle has only 2 lines of symmetry. All this has been explained detailed when you pick the concept of plane geometry and you study that. So once again, the area of the rectangle gives you the length times the width, right? And the perimeter is going to be all the sides put together. Remember, 2 sides are equal, so 2 of the L plus 2 of the width together will give us the perimeter. All these formulas are very cool for you to remember. But like I said, I'm not going to give you questions that you have to memorize this and then quote it and go. Your questions ought to be more critical because this is senior high school. And of course, it's Form 2. Look at the first example that we have here. What is the side length of a square that has the same perimeter as the circle of radius 21 centimeters? You see, I didn't give you a question like the length of a square is 2. Find the area. No. What is the length of a square that has the same perimeter as the circle of radius 21 centimeters? And so here, you see, we are going to add the lesson length in square, lesson length with circle with our part 1. Now, we put the things together and you have to answer question on that. And so how do we do this? How do we do this? We are talking about square. We are talking about circle. And they said the square has the same perimeter as the circle of radius 21 centimeters. So it means that if I know the perimeter of the circle, I should know the perimeter of a square, and I can now know the side of a square. So we know that circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. We did that at our last meeting. So it will be prudent you go back and watch that lesson. Then you can you can watch this lesson again and again, and you'll be able to get what you want. Now, our pi is approximately 22/7 given to us, and our r is 21 according to the question. Of course, so we are going to just do simple cancellation here. 7 divide itself 1 and divide here 3, and 3 times 22 times times 2, and no, 22 times 3 will give us 66, right? And 66 times 2 will give us 132. So that's our circumference. All right. Now, what it means is that if I pick the square, it has the same perimeter as 132 centimeters. And we know square has all sides equal, so I can have L, 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 L. Now, to find the perimeter of a square, it is 4L, which is the same as the perimeter of the circle, which is 132. And so, simple, we are doing 132 divided by 4. And that should be our answer. And if you do that very well, you get 33 to be your answer. That is dividing 132 by 4. You get 33. Right, so you see how the question is framed. You don't need to memorize the formula so much, but then we still have to know the formula in order to solve the question. Now let's take another example here, which has to do with rectangle. It says the length of a rectangle is twice its breadth. If its area is 162 centimeters, find to 2 decimal places the length of its diagonal. The length of its diagonal. So you see the question. It's not straightforward question. You have to add things together to get what you want. All right. So how do we answer this question as well? Let's discuss it. In the normal sense, I should have paused for you to solve. Then I will see your answer. That could have been the best. But because this is TV and I'm not here directly with you to pause for you to finish for me to see. You can just get the answer, but then when you are doing revision, keep the answer somewhere, try solving it yourself and see how best you can get it. All right, the length of a rectangle is twice its breadth. So if I have a rectangle, let me call the length L and the breadth B, or maybe let me call the width or the breadth, maybe call it X. So if the breadth is S, then the length will be twice that. That's what it means. Because we're saying the length of a rectangle is twice its breadth. Now, if the area of this rectangle is 162, so it means that to find the area of a rectangle, we know that with length times breadth, so X, 2X times X, all should give us 162 to be the area. Right. So, what do? We just multiply. So, this is going to give us 2x squared equals 162. If you divide both sides by 2, we have x squared to be equal to 81. Okay, that is 162 divided by 2. If I want to make s a subject, I'll just do s is equal to square root of that. So, s is 9. That means if the width is 9, what is the length? Twice that, so that will be 18. So this gives us the length and then the width of the rectangle. But the question didn't ask us to find the length and the width. They said we should find the length of its diagonal. That means if I draw the diagonal here, what would be the diagonal? That is what you want to do. Right. And we now can do that because rectangle has interior angle here to be 90. It's cool because it makes it right angle triangle. And so we can use Pythagoras theorem to do that. So d squared will be equal to 18 squared plus 9 squared. You can do your calculations and taking making d the subject, you can know that d will give you 18 squared, I think, is 324 plus 81. And when we add that to 81, we get 405. That is our d squared. And when you take the square root to both sides, it will give us our d. And that will be 20.12 centimeters. 20.2 centimeters. Right. I'll leave this question for you to take a screenshot of it and then solve it on your own. But I'll give you the answer. Find the cost of carpeting a room which is 12 meters long and 8 meters wide at $6 per square meter. You see, I didn't ask you just to find the area, but I say find the cost of you carpeting your room, and your room dimension is 12 meters long and by 8 meters long, I mean wide or something. And if you buy 1 square meter carpet, the cost is $6. So how much will you buy in order to carpet the entire room? Take your time and do this, and your answer will come as $576. And of course, I can explain that to you very easily. All you need to do is to find the area of the whole room, which is 12 times 8. And if 1 meter squared is 6, then you can multiply the whole area by $6, and that will be your answer. Then this one too, you can try on your own. The area of a square field is 24,200 square meter. How long will it take a lady to cross the field diagonally at a rate of 6.6 kilometers per hour? So you see that the questions that are coming here, even though the topic is a topic we have been doing from primary through GHS to SHS, but then as you graduate, as you keep on growing, the questions that will come, the same concept, but you need to add more value to your knowledge to solve them. Here we are looking at area of a square being given to you. A lady is to cross this particular area, but you want to use a diagonal means. I mean, you want to cross it across, cross the square diagonally. And she's walking at a rate of 6.6 kilometers per hour. How long will it take her to cross? So simple, just know the diagonal of your square, and then that will give you the distance. And we know that speed is equal to distance over time. And you can make t the subject. And when you do that, you realize that he's going to use 2 minutes to walk across the field. Right. Now, let's look at rhombus. Let's look at rhombus. Of course, rhombus, we've done the detailed work in plane geometry 1. Some of the properties we learned over there says that opposite angles are congruent and opposite sides are also congruent, meaning they are equal. And then we also learned that consecutive angles are supplementary. That means angle here, angle there, they are consecutive, they follow each other. It will add up 180. This and this also add up 180. This and that will add up 180, and it goes on and on. If one angle is right, then all angles are right. That means when one side becomes 90, automatically all will be 90 as well. The diagonal bisect each other at 90, like we saw in square. Each diagonal of rhombus separate it into 2 congruent triangles, and you can see that the moment I draw one diagonal, the area I create becomes equal. So like this, if I have this as rhombus and I draw this diagonal, then the area here becomes the same as the area there. And it goes in the other way around as well. So to find the area and perimeter of rhombus, again here we can say the perimeter will give you, if one side is A, that will be A plus A plus A plus A. Of course, that will give you 4A. And if you want to find the area, here take note that the height of the rhombus is not the same as the side. because rhombus doesn't have right angle triangle. Okay, so it means you want to find the area, just multiply the base times the perpendicular height. The base times perpendicular height. That is one way of finding the area of a rhombus. Okay, now another way we can do that is when we know the diagonals, the two diagonals, let's call D1 and D2. If I know the two diagonals, I just multiply them and half the result. When I do that, I will still get the area of the rhombus. And so 1, we said it is length times the perpendicular height. 2, we are saying is half the product of the length of 8 diagonals, which is same as half D1 times D2. Then the third formula we can also use is, in case we are given angles, okay, the interior angles, any of them, whether we are given the acute side or the obtuse side, we can use any of them to find the area. And all we need to do is, if you know the size, okay, we multiply the size and then we multiply by the sine of any of the angles. So whether we say a squared sine theta or a squared sine alpha. All right. So what it means is that if you don't know the height, but you know the side, and you know either the angle here or the angle there, you can still find the area. If you don't know the angle, you have no height, you can find the diagonals, you can still find your area. So we have 3 different formulas here to do that. Then parallelogram, yes, almost the same as the rhombus, but remember that parallelogram is the mother. Under it we have rhombus, and we have rectangle and square. Okay, so that is that. And again, for parallelograms, opposite sides are congruent. Like we said earlier on, opposite angles are equal, consecutive angles are supplementary. If one angle is right, all angles become right. Diagonals of parallelograms bisect each other. And that is very important. I think I've not explained that so far. What it means is that if there is a parallelogram, okay, the diagonals will always bisect each other. So the length here is equal to the length there. So this happens in parallelogram as a mother, it happens in rectangle, it happens in rhombus, it happens in square. So this family of parallelogram, they have the same property, okay? That is, if the diagonals meet, they will bisect each other. This is not true with kites, and it's not true with trapezium and trapezoid. It's unique with rhombus, parallelogram, and all those families. Then again, to find the area of parallelogram, like we did for the rhombus, is the length times perpendicular height. And of course, these are formulas we know from GHS. But then how do we use these formulas to solve questions? Is what matters. Example number 1. A rhombus has length of 8 diagonals to be this and that. We want to calculate the length of the side and what is the perimeter of this rhombus. Here I've given you the length of 8 diagonals. So there are 2 diagonals. Always one will be longer than the other. Then we want to find the length of the side of it. Then the perimeter of the whole rhombus. That is our work. So let me just have a sketch of rhombus here. I mean a sketch. And the diagonals are 16 and 12. But then for the 16, that's the longest side, I can put it 8, 8, because 8 plus 8 will give me 16. Shorter side can give me 6 plus 6, which will give me 12. I know that interior angles, they bisect each other at right angle, 90, very important. It means I can get 90 here, 90 here, 90 there. Anywhere can be 90. What it means also is that each of the triangle obtained after drawing the 2 diagonals are going to be right angle triangle. Each of them will be right angle triangle, but they're not going to have the same area. Remember that, because the length of the diagonals are not the same. So for us to find the side, let me call the side here A. Then it means I can use Pythagoras theorem to say that A squared will be equal to 8 squared plus 6 squared. Simple. I can do that to find for the A. Now, when I know the A, that is what the question is asking me to do, then I can use the A to find the perimeter by adding all the sides together. So A squared will give me 64 plus 36, and that'll be 100. Our A squared, A becomes square root of 100. And of course, that will give us 10. So if the side of the rhombus is 10, what will be the perimeter? Of course, that is very simple. 4 times the length. Good. Example number 2. The diagonals of a rhombus are 5 and 8. Find the area of the rhombus, the acute angle between the sides. For the area, no wahala, because you can just say half the multiplication or the product of the two diagonals. Very simple. But then the most important thing we have to understand here is how to find the acute angle between the sides. So that is what I'll guide you through first. So for the area, I will not bother myself because it's a formula work. Half times 8 times 5. No wahala. Now, how do I find the acute angle between the sides? Remember that the sides meet at 2 different angles. The first one is going to be the acute, the other one will be obtuse. They meant each of the angle become 90, then that becomes a square. But then, anytime you have rhombus, one interior angle will be acute, whilst the other becomes obtuse. So we want to find the acute. So if I draw a diagonal to pass through the acute, it will divide the acute angle into 2 equal parts. Then this also will come this way. Remember, this will form an angle of 90 degrees here. Now, I know that the longest diagonal is 8, so that will give me 4 and 4. And then the short one will give me 2.5 against 2.5. And I want to find this theta, okay? Whatever theta I find here times 2 will give us the whole acute angle. And so I need application of knowledge here, and that is going to be trigonometry, SOHCAHTOA. So the acute angle, the half of the acute angle that I've indicated as theta, its opposite is 2.5, and adjacent becomes 4. So I need to apply knowledge. You see, the reason why when you learn this topic, you don't just keep it at only the formula side, but you have to open up to solve other bigger questions, which you need more areas of concept to add up. So tan theta is equals to opposite 2.5 over adjacent 4. So to find the theta, you need to find tan inverse of 2.5, then 4. So with the calculator work, you can just do that. And so our tan inverse of 2.5 over 4 will be 32.005. All right, so that is theta. Now, that is the halfway through the whole acute angle. So if theta is 32.005, then twice of that will be 64.0107. The question didn't ask us to leave it to any decimal place, so we can just leave our answer as such. So theta becomes 64.0107 as the answer, or approximately we can say 64. But here we just say 64.01. That's how we solve questions. So see that here I've been able to solve this question because I have to understand that the diagonals bisect each other. That is one. the diagonal bisect each other at an angle of 90, that is 2. I have to also apply the knowledge of trigonometry, that is 3. So you see, all this come together in solving question. The next question will be for you to do it on your own. The area of a rhombus is given. One of a diagonal is twice the other. Find the length of the longer diagonal. Do that and you get 32 as your answer. Take a screenshot of the question and then the answer. Take your time and go through it, and then you get the answer to be true. Then the last aspect we'll take, which will end today's section, will be area of a triangle. Area of a triangle. Of course, we've already established that area of a rectangle is length times breadth. Now, if I draw a diagonal through any parallelogram or any quadrilateral, I create 2 triangles. But because this is a rectangle, we are going to get 2 congruent triangles. So if the area of a rectangle is length times height, height, then halfway through that is going to be half L times H. But then in triangle, the L, we call it base, and then the H, we call it height. So we can write this as half base times height. That's how the formula of triangle comes into play. And of course, we can use that to solve questions like this type of question will come your way. From this diagram, you want to find the length AB, and we want to find the perimeter of ABCD, and then also to find the area of ABCD. I'll walk you through the solution, then you take your time and do it on your own. And so what we do first, to find the length AB, AB now represents, or AB and D forms a right angle triangle. So to find the AB here, we need to use Pythagoras theorem. That's number 1, to solve it. Number 2, to find the perimeter of ABCD, you need to know AB length, then AD, which is given already, DC, which is given, but we don't have the BC. So once again, you can use Pythagoras theorem with the help of this side and that side to find the line BC. Now, after knowing BC, you can now add all the sides together, and that will give you the answer. Then finally, to find the area of ABCD, you need to find the area of ABD and then the area of BDC. So find the area of this first, area of that, and you put them together. Okay? So the area of this is a triangle, so half base times height. Area of that is a triangle, half base times height. You put them together. If you do this very well, these are your answers that you will get. I'm sure you take your time and go through that as well. Okay, so we have the area of a triangle here to be 40 meters squared. The base is 2 meters more than the height. Find the base of the height of the triangle. The area of a triangle is 40 meters squared. The base is 2 more than the height. Find the base and the height of the triangle. Very nice and interesting question, right? And so let me walk you through once again. So we have a triangle here. Always, when you are given a question like this, try to sketch the diagram. It helps a lot. Students don't like sketching diagrams. You always want to get the answer without sketching, but it's very important to sketch. So the triangle, the area of a triangle is 40 meters squared. The base is 2 more than the height. So let us assume that the height is h. That means the base will be 2h. Oh, sorry. 2 more than the h means 2 plus h. Sorry. 2 more than that. So it will be 2 plus h. So, or h plus 2. Find the base and then the height. We know that to find the area of a triangle, we have half base, and the base is that times height. So we get this. So this is going to be the equation, but then This area has been given as 40. Right, so we just simplify this, and then we have half into bracket 2h plus h squared equals 40. This will end up generating a quadratic equation for you. You take time and you go through the quadratic equation, you'll be able to solve it and get your base to be 10 and your height to be 8 meters. So this is the clue for you on how to solve it. You generate quadratic equation here, you take your time and solve it systematically. All right. Now, let me quickly walk you through trapezium. We may not be able to solve more questions, but at least it will give you a fair view of trapezium. Of course, trapezium, look at these diagrams here. If I ask this question in class, how many of these diagrams do you think, based on your previous knowledge, is a trapezium? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different diagrams. Which of them is a trapezium? I've been asking this question in class, and sometimes students struggle in identify trapezium from this. Normally, you see students telling you number 1 is trapezium because that is obvious. Mostly in books, that's what we see as trapezium. Sometimes you can also see number 3 also as such. But if you come to number 2, they don't see that. 6, 4, and 4 is a bit okay. It looks more of trapezium. The only one that is not trapezium is 5. The rest are all trapezia. You see, but we always see example as this. Trapezium can come in different form. By definition, we say it is a quadrilateral, all right, with only one pair of 8 sides parallel. Only one pair of 8 sides parallel. So if you look at the diagram that you see here, I'm trying to generate trapezium in different forms or different shapes, okay, or different orientations. All that matter is that 2 sides will always remain parallel and the other 2 sides will not be. The moment the other 2 sides also become parallel, then it ceases to become trapezium. It will turn into parallelogram. Right, so you can see the format here. Look at this. This is a trapezium. This is a trapezium. So no matter the orientation, it comes in different forms and different orientation. It still remains trapezium because 2 sides remain parallel, or only one pair of sides remain parallel. So by finding the area, of course, the formula is always clear that half the sum of the 2 parallel sides. So the side here, if it's B, and the side here, if it is A, it will be half the sum of the 2 parallel sides times the perpendicular height. Be careful with that, the perpendicular height. And to find the perimeter, that one is obvious. You just add your N, your A, your M, and your B. Together will give you the perimeter, which of course is always easy to know the perimeter. So if I give you a question like this, okay, and I ask you to find the area of a trapezium with all these parameters, okay, with all these parameters, it's very easy for you to do. All you need to know is that if the question says AB is defined and CD is defined, and AB and CD are parallel, just draw trapezium, making sure that your AB, okay, and your CD or ABC, C will come here rather, and then D, your CD are parallel. So show those 2 sides that are parallel, and they've defined those 2 sides for you. So we have 20 and then 15. Then the question said, if the perpendicular distance between the parallel side is 10, that means this is 10, perpendicular distance is 10. Then we are done. Then when you're able to transfer the literature into diagram and able to represent each of the dimension given, then the question is solved. Now to find the area, all you need is just to say the area is equal to half the sum of the 2 parallel sides, which is 15 and 20, times the height, and the height is 10. There you go, your answer comes. Right, your answer comes. So when you do that, you get 175 as your answer. Right, so take this question, take this question, solve it on your own. I'll pop the answer for you to see so that we say goodbye to today's lesson. I'm sure you've learned a lot going through area of a square, perimeter of a square, rhombus, parallelogram, rectangle, and coming to triangle and then trapezium. We've learned a lot. The last one we didn't talk about is kite. We'll refer that to our next meeting, which will be part 3 of this, because after kite we need to talk about composite shapes. Different shapes come together to form different orientation of figures. And how do we find those figures, their areas and then their perimeters? For example, if I draw something like this, this is not a rectangle, it's not a triangle, it's not any of the figures we know, but then we can generate figures out of it and find areas from that. Right, if you go through this question, okay, your final answer will come as 152 centimeters squared. Take your time and do this, and you'll be able to get the answer as such. Right, with this we come to the end of SHS Core Mathematics 2. That is SHS 2 Core Mathematics. This has been SHSR on Joy Learning. My name is Evans Ode. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.